Alright everyone, hello and welcome to NIS Open, the final race of the NASCAR Winston Cup season. And, oh, did I just say Winston Cup? We're already off to a good start here. The NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series. Down here with Tyler Head once again, and Jose Salas Jr. is our pit reporter. Say hi, you two.
I don't believe Jose is here, but hello. We got some drama here. Jimmy Mullis came in as the leader, but I believe he's taking a bathroom break.
Wow, that's going to be some trouble for him here at the famed Homestead Miami Speedway, home of the Ford 400.
And this is a full-length iRacing event, so it is 400 miles. So far they have 58 laps in the books, so almost 90 miles of 400. So it'll be a breeze to get to the finish of this one.
And it's really nice that you can do some math. I mean, you counted up to like 59 times, or wow, I can't even do math anymore. You counted up to 59, you had to do 59 times. It's going to be a good race, guys. I don't even know what I just said. That's how good my commentary is tonight.
Yeah, this bodes well for the Montreal feature event.
It really does. So right now, our race rundown, we are at the Homestead Miami Speedway. The track condition is clear skies, 88 degrees, and we have 4-mile-an-hour winds. The race is 394 miles, and currently we have had one lead change in 58 laps. That pretty much shows how good the competition here is here on iRacing.
Now, just to follow up on what I was saying at the beginning here, just had pit stops, and Jimmy Mullis came in as the leader, but didn't leave his pit stall when the service was complete. Stayed there. I assume he was getting a beverage. Maybe he was shitting himself. Either way, he is now running 25th. A very costly break.
Yeah, and that's going to be very, very hard for him to come back to as we look at Jimmy Mullis there all the way back in the 24th place. He is going to have to make his way up through the field, but we do know that he's a very good driver based on seeing him at WINSTEL, and he's also a DWC driver, so we know that he has the car and the talent to get back up there. Not too much worry about him. Going back up front as we are down to one lap to the green flag here at the Homestead Miami Speedway. Dalton Millam, Blake Reynolds, and Daniel Wilborn will round out your top three.
Jimmy Mullis is actually scored 24th, not 25th, so absolutely no drama there. He's perfectly fine. I apologize for my mistake.
Yeah, he is really moving up, and as you can see on the racetrack, Joe Krev rounds it out in that 34th position with a beautiful-looking race car with almost no front end left on that Camaro. That is going to be very competitive at the end of the race.
Just behind Joe is Zachary Latimer, and Zachary's actually the cause of this caution period that's about to conclude. He self-spun off of turn 2 while running P9, I believe, and now he finds himself tail end of the field, so not a great day for him.
All right, folks, coming down for the green flag here at Homestead Miami Speedway. Pace car getting ready to pull off, and there goes Brett Bodine. Green flag back in the air. Dalton Millam gets a good jump on the restart. Blake Reynolds falls behind just a little bit as he's probably going to drop down to the inside, heading off to turn 1.
Millam's number 4 shoots out there. He obviously was the control car on that start. He's got a couple of car lengths on Reynolds, who was just behind Mullis before that round of pit stops. It'll be interesting to see if Millam can pull away as this run continues.
We understand our cameras are set up a little bit late, so we missed some of this race, but appears that the competition up front is going to be a little bit close. Blake Reynolds drifts up high off turn 4 and loses some more ground on Dalton and falls back another car length. That's really going to hurt his struggle.
First side-by-side battle on the track is for the 6th position. Michael Gonzalez has it. Devin Hall wants it. Hall to the inside of the number 9 with his number 5 machine as they come off of turn number 2.
Ooh.
Almost contact there, and it looks like Gonzalez is going to clear him to keep that 6th spot.
Well, if you've ever played iRacing, folks, you know that when you're in the number 9 car, your race is already ended before you've even taken the green flag. Because usually there is such a thing as the 9-car curse, and it's usually because the 9 car causes a wreck or gets caught up in one. So we're going to have to watch Michael Gonzalez here tonight.
Well, for the moment, the curse has not struck Gonzalez. He was able to clear Hall off of that restart. Now he's setting his sights on Dustin Johnson in front of him for the 5th spot.
He only has 204 more laps to get wrecked. I mean, that is not many at all.
Time is running out to keep the curse alive.
Okay. Oh, as you can see, It looks like Daniel Wilborn was looking to the inside of the number 6 of Jacob Hall to no avail, and Dalton Millam continues to pull away as that gap is up to 0.33 seconds as they come off turn 2 down the back straightaway. The field pretty much single file all the way through right now. They are calming out just a little bit here. You can see them side by side up there for the 14th place, the 24 up on the high side of the number 27 of Adam Cabot, just coming around off turn 4, and that is kind of a gaggle of cars right there.
Yeah, they stay side by side as they head down the front straightaway. That's Michael Jeans in the 24 trying to fend off a challenge from the 27 of Adam Cabot to the bottom. And right behind them, Jimmy Mullis trying to pick his way back through this field. He's already up to 16th, now taking 15th.
Mullis from 1st to 24th and already back up to the 14th position now. He is on a mission to get back towards the lead, and we've only been green flag for 5 laps. That just goes to show you how strong that car is.
Yeah, and you can see how strong he is on the bottom, too. Very difficult to make a pass down there, evidently, based on how other people have been running, but not for Mullis. Able to get back to the throttle way before his competition, and that's making passing easy for him at this juncture.
We are on board with Mullis right now, going off into turn number 3, and you can see he has that car planted down. He's barely even moving that wheel in the corners, so that car is set up very well, and he's, like you said, running down against the very bottom of the racetrack, and that's going to give him a huge advantage all throughout this run. The only concern is, will that wear his tires out later in the run?
Well, that's something that he's going to have to worry about later. Right now, the task at hand, pick his way through the field, and he's down to the inside of Joshua Campbell right now for P13. He takes the spot heading down the back straightaway.
Michael Gonzalez continues to run in that 6th spot. It looks like they are spreading out at the front of the pack a little bit more, and even Dalton Millam up front has pulled away another 10th over Blake Reynolds as we start lap 68 of 267 here for the Ford 400.
Yep, he's got about a half-second advantage over Blake Reynolds, about 10 laps into this stint so far, so he's got a little bit of an edge there, but Reynolds isn't letting him get away. The gap is similar back to 3rd place Daniel Wilborn. He's running there in the number 11 car. And a similar gap back to 4th place Jacob Hall in the 6, and back in 5th, a similar gap to Dustin Johnson, but it narrows up behind him with Michael Gonzalez in the 9, trying to make a move off of turn 4, but that move loses his momentum, and now Dustin Johnson able to get a little bit of a gap as they navigate turns 1 and 2.
Behind him, you have Devin Hall currently running in the 7th position. Then you have Robert Torgerson there in the 8th position. That number 21 car coming down the back straightaway. A train of 3 cars. Jacob Fisher takes the 9th place, and Jesse Suarez takes the 10th place. That rounds out your top 10 here at the Homestead Miami Speedway. As you see some of these guys starting to run the high side, trying to find a better line as the track heats up a little bit.
Jesse Schwartz has that 10th position. He rounds out the top 10 spots. Just 2 cars behind him now is Jimmy Mullis, about 1.5 seconds back to that number 2, marching its way up through the field. It will be interesting to see as the competition gets stiffer, as he heads up through the field, and as the tires wear out, how much that 2 will be able to continue that march.
So I want to give you a bit of a comparison. Jimmy Mullis in the number 2 right now is running about 1/10 faster a lap than Dalton Millam, your current race leader, and about 2/10 faster a lap than Blake Reynolds as we watch him come across the start-finish line now. He has ran, let me see there, he has ran still almost a full 10th faster than both of your 1st and 2nd place drivers, so he's catching them not super quick, but if you're a 10th faster now and he gets a caution, which obviously we will have another one before the end of this, he will be probably back in the lead.
And important to note there, he ran almost a 10th faster than the leader while making a pass for the 12th position. There's some people between him and Dalton Millam there in the lead who are able to run quicker laps, but we'll see how it sorts out here when he has clean air, when he's not trying to make a pass. He ran a 31.615. I'm seeing 4 cars in front of him, 5 cars that were able to run faster than that last lap. So he's got very good speed, even still, compared to the drivers that he still has yet to pass.
Back up front, we're about to have a battle for the lead as Blake Reynolds has closed that gap to only about 1/10 of a second as they come down towards the start-finish line. Dalton Millam dropping back. It looks like his car's already fallen off. Blake Reynolds has caught him quickly as now Blake Reynolds runs 2/10 of a faster that lap. Blake Reynolds down to the inside. Blake Reynolds trying to get the lead out.
The caution is out.
Man.
Something has happened to ruin the race for the lead. This is terrible.
Man,
Whoever brought out this caution should feel
it
ashamed.
appears that Chris Kutcha might have gone around on the racetrack, and he has. Let's see what happens to him as he goes off to turn 3 here. The 31 right behind him. Did he get hit? Did he get hit? Oh, the 31 tapped him in the middle of the corner and sent the 35 around. No other cars collected. A single car incident here at Homestead right in front of the field. So he's alive, and it appears that Joe Krev will get the lucky dog in that damaged Camaro that looks like ass. I don't really know what it is, but he will get the lucky dog.
Well, that was some intense battling going on for an irrelevant position, so you got to expect that that sort of thing's going to happen.
Yeah, this kind of racing here, it's going to happen here at the Homestead Miami Speedway, because we know that this is going to be one hell of a show with these guys. They're all over it here.
I mean, when you find yourself battling for 26th place, the only thing to do is use the bumper.
I mean, yeah, what else would you do in your 26th place? If I was battling for 42nd, I'd intent wreck the guy in front of me.
I mean, if you're running 26th, you're having a great day. Everything's awesome. There's bitches waiting outside of your hauler after the race wanting to get down with you. If you're running 27th, the IRS is going to audit you.
Well,
so there's a big difference between 26th and 27th.
Well, I know if I was Morgan Shepherd on those rollerblades, I would have all kinds of people lining up to get my autograph, especially when I fall down in the pit road at Richmond International Raceway. That is the peak highlight of my career.
Well, you know what they always said about Morgan Shepherd? It really didn't matter what he did on the track. That man was just so sexy and so in tune with Jesus that he could do whatever he wanted.
I think Joe Nemechek was sexier, though.
Interesting battle off of the pit lane here. It looks like Blake Reynolds may have secured the lead with that pit stop.
Yes, he has, and will he be able to keep it? I think so, but Millum has a better short-run car, so it all depends on what kind of run they get here, and if he'll be able to keep that lead or not.
Scoring monitor showing only a tenth of a second difference between their pit stop times, but that and the time spent on the pit lane pushing the speed limit as far as you can evidently worked in Blake Reynolds' favor.
Yeah, he's pushing it in pit lane just as he's pushing it on the racetrack, keeping his foot down. At least he didn't get caught for speeding like a lot of these people do. I know when I get caught for speeding, I just do it over and over again because that's exactly what you want to do. Instead of going 1 lap down, you should go 3 laps down. It makes it much more of a challenge.
And we were documenting the march through the field by Jimmy Mullis during that stint. This caution resets things, re-racks everybody, and we would have to think that'll benefit him. Close the gap to everybody, put new tires on that car. It's going to make that march to the front a little bit easier.
I think it'll make it a little bit easier because, like you said, now he's already up 2 or 3 seconds from where he restarted in the last restart. My question is, how good is Blake Reynolds on these long runs? Because he appeared to maintain his lap time, so those two even out. And it's going to take another caution for him to even have a chance.
And it's worth noting that Daniel Wilborn there in third after these pit stops and Dustin Johnson, both of them had also worked their way into the picture in that battle for the lead right before the caution came out. Whether or not Blake would be able to get around Dalton Millum for that lead and pull away from those two at that point, or if they would stay in touch with him, not sure, but they had closed in as that battle was intensifying.
Yeah, we are up to a whopping 2 lead changes in 75 laps. That is amazing competition. Currently, the fastest lap is held by Dalton Millum, with 176 miles an hour. Much faster than what the trucks run. Don't know if it takes a whole lot more talent, but we'll see here on the restart because the track is a little cool, actually, as it is actually dropped down to 87 degrees.
They just got the 1-to-go signal there at the line, so green next time by. Worth noting that this is an open setup NASCAR iRacing Series race, so the difference between one driver and the other setup-wise could be very different. Somebody might have a very stable setup, something that is very secure underneath them. Somebody else might have something that is a bit looser, especially with the changing weather conditions. So that's something to keep in mind. This isn't one of those fixed races where it's a standard setup that just plows the moment that you enter in the corner. These guys have control over their setups. They can adjust as the race goes on and try to get that car to rotate and maybe overstep that line.
Now, we do know that camber thrusting is still a little bit of a thing, not as much as it used to be, but you can adjust that right rear spring perch offset to decide how much thrust you want going off into the corners. And from what I understand, the more thrust you have, the faster you are in the short run, but the worse the car is on the long run. So I'm wondering if that's going to be the difference between Dalton Millam and Blake Reynolds on why Millam was able to pull away by half a second and Blake quickly closed the gap within the last 5 laps last run.
I'm not sure. All I know is that it doesn't matter what the build is, there will always be pelvic thrusting. We're back green here at Homestead.
We are green flag here at Homestead. Blake Reynolds has an amazing restart as he pulls away. Ooh, almost a little bit of contact in the back of the pack. He's already 3/10 ahead of Daniel Wilborn, actually, and Dalton Millam did not have a good restart. Drops back to the 3rd place. They are 2 wide the rest of the field.
Yep, the first side-by-side battle looks to be for the 5th spot. Jacob Hall in the number 6 trying to fend off a challenge from Dustin Johnson in the number 8. Looks like he's going to be able to do that as they work their way through turn 4, and Johnson's going to have to fend off a challenge from Michael Gonzalez.
Oh, contact in the wall at the back. It looked like the number 33 bounced off the wall just a little bit. The 21 panicked and went down to his inside. Here comes the 21. He's going to shove it down to the inside of Devin Hall. Doesn't make it stick, and he's going to drop back again.
Meanwhile, that battle for the 5th position, give the nod to Michael Gonzalez. He was able to get around Dustin Johnson up on the high side. Now sets his sight on Jacob Hall for the 4th position.
Yes, sets his set on the 4th position out there, but as we know with the 9 car, it is very rare a 9 car will finish the race. And you also have to look at 2003 Homestead. Even if it's the final lap, the curse is still relevant. So anything can happen here with that number 9.
And the caution is out.
Yeah, a caution once again on the speedway. Looks like a couple guys are dropping out the path. The number 30 is around in turn number 1. We're going to take a look at what happened here. He goes off to the corner and... well, oh, he gets a love tap. He got a love tap. I couldn't tell what number it was and threw his right rear into the wall. And that's probably going to slow him down for a while. And I don't think they wrecked too much after that. It looks like it was just a single car wreck once again. Man, back under caution once again. But you know who this helps? Jimmy Mullis has worked his way up to the 8th spot.
It looked like it was the 27 of Adam Cabot that sparked that incident there, getting into the left rear of the 30 with the right front of his 27, and around the 30 went from there. Aaron Waddle taking some damage to the rear end of his car as he hit the wall, as you noted.
All right, folks, we're going to take a commercial break for a minute so we can both go take a pee break. While we're on commercial break, which actually isn't a commercial break, it's just going to be a music break, you can have some nice sound by listening to the NASCAR on Fox starting grid theme. You're welcome here, folks, and we'll be right back.
Oscar, where are my ants on a log? I like celery, I like raisins, and I like peanut butter. Put them together and give them.
Joined your channel.
All right, folks, and we are back here at the Homestead Miami Speedway. I hope Tyler still isn't taking a pee. We're live on lap 83 under caution after the number 30 gets sent around into the wall, heading off to turn 1 a couple laps ago. And currently it looks like the number 11 of Daniel Wilborn will find his way up front somehow with the damaged race car. I'd assume he's coming down pit lane, I would hope, but we don't really know what's going to happen here in iRacing.
I don't believe the 11 has damage.
No, it's the... Oh, sorry, I was looking at the completely wrong car. I was looking at the lap car that wants to wave around. The number 32 of Joe Krev. He is 1 lap down, and he wants to get that lap back, so that will leave him 1 lap down instead of 2 laps down. And then the next caution comes out, he gets his lap back via the lucky dog.
Yeah, and looking at the pit stop times, I think that we may have had some 2-tire action there. Just 9.5 seconds for Daniel Wilborn up front. Blake Reynolds kind of on the border there with a 12.3 second pit stop. In this service, that might be 2, or that would be an insanely quick 4-tire pit stop. In third place, Dalton Millam, 9.8 seconds. That's certainly 2 tires. And in fourth, Jacob Hall, 10.6 seconds. I would have to think that's 2 tires as well. Fifth place, Michael Gonzalez with a 14.3 second pit stop. That would be the first person guaranteed to be on 4 tires.
That is right, so we will see here, albeit my system is currently showing me their pit stop is 14.3 seconds all throughout the front of the pack, besides a couple cars straggling that 10th or 2. So I think most of the pack might actually be on 4 tires, besides a couple cars. The only guy that's probably on 2 tires is the number 23 of Guy Sela, says 10.2 seconds, then David Cater. He's in the number 26 in the 17th place, showing 9.2 seconds, so we might have some technical glitches with the pit stop reporting currently, but that's okay. We're about to go back racing here at the Homestead Miami Speedway with Daniel Wilborn as the leader. The pace car, Brett Bodine, gets ready to pull off.
Yeah, it looks like everybody 5th on back, based on my scoring, has 4 tires, and those front 2 rows are on 2 tires. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. Coming to the green here, back to it at Homestead.
Daniel Wilborn pulls away a little bit as we come into turn number 1, but not that far, because here comes Dalton Millam right behind him, and I'd assume that those 2 drivers are teammates based on their car, but just because you're teammates, Tyler, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to race each other very nice, does it?
Well, I mean, sometimes that could be a little bit of extra motivation in certain circumstances to race harder. They probably have very similar setups, if not the exact same setup. You want to prove, hey, I can do a little bit more with the same stuff than this guy. This may not be the stage in the race to do that, but when it comes down to it, one would have to think that'll be the case. Right now, they ride 1 and 2 with the 6, excuse me, my scoring is screwing up, with the 11 of Daniel Wilborn leading Dalton Millam in that number 4.
Yep, then as you move on back to the pack, the number 21 side by side with Jimmy Mullis. Jimmy Mullis drops to the inside, going to take that 8th place back. Mullis actually lost a couple of spots in the last pit stop. These stops are not helping him nearly as much as I thought they would.
And as it turns out, he's going to have to fight a little bit harder to have that 8th position. Robert Torgensen fighting hard on that outside, making it tough for Mullis.
Well, here's the thing, and you're especially going to see it with the open setups even more so than fixed. The farther you get to the closer you get to the front, the harder and harder it gets to pass somebody. At the back of the pack, where they're all running half a second off the pace, you can blow by them as much as you want all day long. But now you're up into the thick of things. Can't you get those spots back?
Well, Mullis was finally able to clear Torgensen, who had some trouble in the middle of 3 and 4 getting back to the throttle. That clears him for the 8th spot, but as you noted, it's only going to get tougher as he marches forward, and he's going to have to use up his tires more and more to complete passes.
And that's the thing, you can see he's not really closing in nearly as fast as he has been. He's been running .5s while the leaders have been able to not racing each other in traffic, been running .2s around this racetrack. So 0.3 of a second a lap adds up very, very quickly here. And that's why even pit stops that are green flag are so important. If a team member screws up a tire, boom, you're already a second behind on the racetrack before you even get out there.
Now, something to note here. Before we went live, on the green flag run before the pit stop where Mullis lost all of that ground, it appeared that he had a very good long run car. Now, that's something that can be aided by being up front, being able to run your pace, and conserve your tires. It'll be interesting to see, as this run goes on, if he's able to still get a little bit of an advantage over the folks in front of him as the run continues, or if his tires are going to be used up too much trying to make passes, and if that's going to level things out.
So you know what I'm very interested to see, actually. So we know how we talked about Dalton Millen having a short run car. Well, his teammates right behind him. Is his teammate running the same setup? I assume they are, because they're running 1-2 on the racetrack right now. But we know Blake Reynolds has a much, much faster long run car than these two do. But if it comes down to a 5-lap shootout, I already handle it basically to Wilborn or Millen versus Reynolds right now, just the way the cars are set up.
Well, Wilborn, it's worth noting, as his teammate Millen was dropping off there as the run progressed. He was one of those cars that was closing in on the battle between him and Reynolds, so it'll be interesting to see how those folks compare, especially with only 2 fresh right side tires versus 4 fresh tires on for this run.
Yes, it's very true, so we're going to see how that pans out, and as you can see, running through the field, it is very getting pretty spread out here. We're going to look back in the 25th place. We get a battle with the number 16, the number 15. That pack is actually pretty tight at the back of the pack. The rest of the field, though, pulling away. I think when you get to the back of the pack here, the setups are much more equal than what they are in the top 10.
And there's an interesting battle pretty much from 15th on back there. We got a side-by-side battle between the 23 of Guy Sela. He has 15th place. And the 19 of Todd Hendrick.
3 wide almost.
He wants 15th place, and there's a lot of action behind them, too. A lot of hungry drivers trying to get what they can.
Yeah, and here's the thing on iRacing, is sometimes, especially in the Gen 6 car, it can be very, very tough to pass unless you get it within that short run. Here they go, 3 wide with the 24, the 26, and the 12. Coming off turn 2, the 24 wimps out of it and backs up. Going back to 2 wide down the back straightaway. That was probably the smart move in there. But look at them. They're all over the place back here.
Yeah, and that backing out by the 24 of Michael Jeans, probably a product of this being a 400-mile race. They're not even 150 miles into this thing. There's a lot of time. No need to force 3 wide at this juncture.
All right, we're jumping into the blimp camera right now. You can see a lot of movement around this racetrack. They're using 2, 3 grooves right there, just in this one path. They are all over each other. I'd say the driving talent and the setups are. Oh, they get the 14 gets into the back of the 23.
And that's the opposite of what the 24 did in that situation. That's being a little bit impatient. That's trying to make something happen
right now. Oh,
with
the 14 trying to shove it to the outside. 14 goes to the middle, 3 wide down the front straightaway. Here comes the Hooters car, the number 20 of Sean Butler down to the inside of the 24. Gonna try and take the 19th spot away as they head off to turn 1.
Yeah, Michael Jeans has the 18th position. He waited out all of that action and was able to come out better for it. He's able to hold off that challenge from Sean Butler to keep the 18th spot. Now Butler trying to fend off a challenge from the 14 of Zachary Latimer, who really not exercising the patience right now. He's going for it.
Yeah, these guys are all over the place. Even at the front of the pack now, they are up to a 0.3 of a second lead over Dalton Millen. Daniel Wilborn currently has over him. Then a 0.2 of a second gap from second to third. So not a ton of racing, but just as I say that, here comes Blake Reynolds trying to fend off third place and gets back by Jacob Hall for third.
So move Blake Reynolds up to the 3rd spot now. He sets his sights on Dalton Millen in second, running in that number 4 car, and his teammate, number 11 of Daniel Wilborn.
Reynolds cuts loose off turn 4 there, and actually, here's something that's going to get interesting, Tyler. Guess who just ran the fastest lap out of the top 3? Here comes Blake Reynolds again, so I think we're going to have to be very careful on this front of the field and watch for a battle. It's probably going to heat up here in about 5 laps.
And looking at the times from that last lap, don't sleep on Devin Hall running in 5th. He had the fastest lap of the top 5 that lap.
He did, so maybe he has one of the longer run setups. And Michael Gonzalez, as we were saying, that 9-car curse, he had the slowest lap the last 2 laps in a row of anybody inside the top 8. So he is coming back. Jimmy Mullis, he is starting to move out through the field a little bit again here. He's still not running super fast lap times, but you said he has a long run car, so we're about to find out here in about 10 laps just how good that car may or may not be.
Up front, despite only having 2 tires, well, I should say, Blake Reynolds is in the, wow, he just got way out of shit coming off of turn 4, but he held it. All these guys are on 2 tires, but they're running similar speeds to the folks behind them that are on 4 tires. A 7.39 by Daniel Wilborn, who's leading this thing, and in 5th place, Devin Hall, the first guy on 4 tires, he ran an 8.56. So actually a bit quicker up front.
You know what we're seeing out of Reynolds that we did not see in the last couple runs? He has his car very, very loose off these corners, and now his times are doing the opposite and falling off quick compared to the leaders. He's almost a full tenth down than the leaders were the last couple of laps now, so he's going to be struggling again maybe here if he can't get his tires cooled back off. He may have over-abused them trying to get back by the number 6 earlier, and we're going to see what happens.
Well, and it may also be a factor of, as this run has progressed, 2 tires not really agreeing with the setup that he has underneath that car. May have just abused one of the tires a little bit more than 4 tires would have, and it's paying the price at the moment. That being said, Dalton Millam just had a little bit of a moment down the back straightaway, and now he's fallen a little bit closer to the clutches of Blake Reynolds. And Jacob Hall there in 4th is also sticking with this group.
That he has. Jacob Hall started in the 3rd spot, currently running in 4th. Not a whole lot of action either at the back of the pack. Zach A. Hudson down on the inside of the 24 seems to be about one of the only battles on the racetrack right now. He's just trying to get by and finally get himself up into the 17th spot, but not having a ton of luck, and just as I say that, now they're 2x2 with the number 10. Looks like he's going to try and shove his way up to 16th at this point, 3 wide off turn 4.
Up front, the top 6 cars are within 2 seconds of each other. Jimmy Mullis just went to 6th off of turn 4 as Michael Gonzalez, I don't know what happened. It didn't really look like something went awry with the car, at least as far as you could see, but he slowed up a lot in turns 3 and 4.
Check that
6th,
instant replay
went to
very
7th.
quick and see if he had a problem going into turn 3 here. He got loose going off into turn 3, and Jimmy Mullis just drives right on by. He got very tight out of turn 4. That number 9 is way off the pace. You know how I said I noticed the last run that he was running slower and slower compared to these guys up front? Well, I think his car is way overdriven, and now just about everybody is starting to run a faster lap time than he is in the top 10.
Speaking of, on the other side of the spectrum, Jimmy Mullis running 6th. He doesn't want 6th anymore. He wants to take away 5th from Devin Hall. I noted that he was the first car on 4 tires. It's about to be Jimmy Mullis if he can complete this pass.
Mullis, 30 laps ago, back in 25th after having a problem on pit road, finds himself all the way back up to the 5th position, maybe if he can get by Devin Hall as they come off turn 2. Hall gets loose. Mullis to the inside, the run clears him down the back straightaway, and now Mullis is going to be fighting back. He is coming back for that lead, running equivalent lap times to Blake Reynolds and Dalton Millam. Now he's got a little bit of clean air. Will he be able to finally catch those guys? And I think he will.
Well, speaking of fighting back, Jacob Hall is just lurking behind Blake Reynolds in that battle for the 3rd position. Blake appears to just be holding on way up the racetrack, running the high line in 1 and 2. And as he comes off the corner, he does it again.
Blake's almost around. Blake Reynolds. Amazing save down the back straightaway. Jacob Hall backs off. We were saying that car. Oh, he's still going again.
He's still sliding. Almost contact with the 6. He's
there he
going
goes.
halfway around.
Whoa.
Still sliding, and now finally gets it gathered back up. But I was just about to say, he has been loose off of just about every corner the last few laps, and that was obviously the most extreme example of that at work. Can't believe he held on to that car.
Folks, oh, he's doing it again. We're on board right now with Blake Reynolds. That car is awful. He's going to need some fresh tires here soon. But that is exactly why Blake Reynolds has a black stripe on his car. Well, I guess they're not really stripes anymore, but like they used to be back in the good old days. But that car is all over the place, and somehow he's hanging on to it. Now even the 9, who is running very slow on the racetrack compared to a lot of these guys, is passing Blake Reynolds. His car is toast. I do not think there's any recovering this car until you get some fresh tires.
Just to really quantify how much those slides are hurting him, he was running 0.6 of a second off of the leader's pace that last lap as he was sliding all over the place.
You know, normally
this is not what we saw when he had 4 tires as the run continued, but I don't know if this is a product of 2 tires or just using up his stuff early in this run or a combination of the two, but the right rear tire on that car is non-existent.
Yeah, just take the camera off Blake Reynolds for a little while here. Jimmy Mullis, look where he lurks, up to the 3rd spot now, has that gap. He currently has that gap now down to only 2 seconds to the leader. And he's running the fastest car on the track the last lap.
Well, and it was about 5 laps ago I said the top 6 were within 2 seconds. Now it's just the top 3. And the thing that has remained the same is Jimmy Mullis within those 2 seconds while making passes. Now it's clean track between him and Dalton Millam in second and his teammate, the 11 of Daniel Wilborn, who's leading this thing. It's a 2-second gap. We'll see what he can do.
You know, I really don't know what to watch here. The battle for the lead, Jimmy Mullis, or do we have Blake Reynolds who's going sideways? Whoa! My God, he saved it again. Or do we have Blake Reynolds who's going sideways all over the place on the racetrack, just trying to hang on to that race car, who's now dropping back to the 8th place, going off to turn 3. There's nothing left of that car on those rear tires.
This is when I wish that we had the ability to do picture-in-picture split screen, because then we could keep an eye on one of those other battles. In the 8, it's
both
also
of them are
just
loose.
holding on. There's a lot of people who are just hanging on for dear life as this run continues on. Blake Reynolds, obviously not the least of them, but also Dustin Johnson there with a big moment off of turn 4.
You know, the track has only warmed up 2 degrees, and if it's made that big of a change on these race cars, they did not leave much room for change in their setups whatsoever. They built them, but these guys are all over the place right now. Even the leaders are finally starting to slide around a little bit. Now that gives us a question. When did we have our last caution? I can't exactly remember, but I think we're going to see some green flag pit stops here soon, especially if these guys are all over the place like that.
Well, they're 29 laps into this run, and I would have to think on fuel you could go 55 to 60 laps, but will the tires last that long? If you're Blake Reynolds, I think not. If you're Jimmy Mullis, Dalton Millam, Daniel Wilborn, folks who are running up front and not having to abuse their tires as much to hang on here, maybe they can extend the run a little bit, but it'll also be one of those monkey see, monkey do situations potentially. So we'll have to keep an eye on the entrance to pit road here and see if anybody elects to stop early.
Side by side, Devin Hall and Michael Gonzalez for that 5th spot. Michael Gonzalez actually making a little bit of a comeback now. His lap times have seemed to level off, unlike these other guys who are starting to get looser and looser. And guess who has that lead interval down to 1.5 seconds? Mullis is hunting. He has the scope on those leaders, and they are getting bigger and bigger in his windshield, but I do not think that they're going to get the lead up easily. Now, we might only be coming up on halfway here in about 20 laps, but here's the thing. 130 laps sounds like a long time, but if they're going green, it's not going to be a super long race anymore. Now, looks like the number 11 is trying to dive to the inside and find a little bit of grip, but nothing. He's dropping back.
I want to go back and talk about Michael Gonzalez here briefly, as he just took that 5th spot away from Devin Hall in the 5. Michael Gonzalez, you were noting that he was falling off as this run was progressing about 10 to 15 laps ago. I think that what we're seeing right now with some of these guys coming back to him is the result of some discipline from him. When Jimmy Mullis got up behind him and he had a moment in turns 3 and 4 that sent him up the track, he calmed down, he stopped from pushing his car, and now folks are coming back to him. He's picking his way back up through the field here a little bit. Contrast that with Blake Reynolds, who was sliding off of every corner, and he fell back.
And we have a caution on the speedway. This changes everything for these drivers.
Trying to locate the source of the caution, it looks like it's the 22 of Alan Belchino. Let's see what happened to him.
We will take a look back on that number 22 here in just a second. All right, we're coming down the back straightaway off turn 2. Side by side with the number 3. The Chase Alley car slammed into him. The number 3 goes flying. The number 2 hits the wall. And that's a 2-car pileup here. Jesse Schwaz, his day is basically done by looking at that front end of the race car. He doesn't have a whole lot left to go off of.
And such an innocent mistake there that ends up being so costly, coming off of the corner, just a little wiggle, and as he tried to get that car back under control, hit the wall, bounced off of it, and around they went from there.
Yeah, and it really does not take a whole lot here, especially on iRacing. Sometimes the netcode can be more sensitive than other times and whatnot, and any hit like that is definitely going to send you around, no question. So, luckily...
Well, especially on 30-lap-old tires, as we were noting.
Yeah, that is very true. So, unfortunately, I think both of their competitive days are done for the race, or competitive flats. They may get back out there. I know the white Ford Fusion will, but that Chase L8 machine, that is going to be a 28th place car at this point.
Pit stops underway right now. We saw some 2 tires last time. None of that this time. It's going to be 4 tires for everybody. And a close battle off of pit road. Jimmy Mullis made up a lot of time.
Yes, he did. Moves up to second spot, and that we have ourselves a new leader. Scott Crump decided to stay out and lead a lap, it looks like, and he's coming into the pits finally. Well, leading a lap doesn't really do you a whole lot in iRacing, but it does add to your statistic. I led an NIS Open against some peak drivers, so maybe that's what he wanted to get on his resume. Anyways, he's going to come down to pit lane for his 4th pit stop of the race.
Dalton Millam in the 4 was able to hold on to the lead there with that first pit stall. But now starting to his right on the restart will be the number 2 of Jimmy Mullis, who just 60 or so laps ago was 24th.
Yep, and we mentioned he'd probably find his way up here. Mullis, all the way back in 24, 60 laps ago, has finally found his way back to the front row, and I bet you he's just laughing at this point because now he knows that he can dominate his way through the field. Almost not a whole lot of issue for him. It only took him 60 laps, so if something does happen to him, he's still got a lot of time to get himself back up to the front.
Let's just run you down through the running order right now after those pit stops. First place, as we mentioned, Dalton Millam in the number 4. Second is Jimmy Mullis. Third, Daniel Wilborn. Fourth, Jacob Hall. Fifth, Michael Gonzalez. Sixth, Devin Hall. Seventh, Todd Hendrick. Eighth is Robert Torgeson. Ninth is Joshua Campbell. And Blake Reynolds, who somehow was able to hang on to that car throughout the run until the caution came out, rounds out the top 10.
You know, it's also very interesting. Blake Reynolds actually started this race back in the 21st position. So that really tells you his car is not at all set up for a short run if he was that slow in qualifying. But I'm also wondering if the track's just changed enough where he's not even good on the long run anymore.
Well, there's a few factors here as we're approaching halfway in this race. There's rubber being put down on the track. As you noted, not big changes, but some changes in the climate that's affecting the grip in this track. And also, there's adjustments being made. Each time they come down for these pit stops, more than likely, these drivers, if they're trying to stay on top of it at all, are trying to make adjustments. And that last run may have been a combination of the 2 tires that we mentioned, but also an adjustment that was a little bit too far. You'd have to think that something has changed on that one car with this most recent pit stop. We'll see how it works out.
We will 1 lap to the green flag, or down to 3/4 of a lap to the green flag. Pace car lights are off. Brett Bodine takes the field around once again in that Mustang pace car from 2005. I think that pace car might need to be get replaced here soon. Start to get a lot of miles on it here on the iRacing service.
I mean, if it ain't broke, why fix it?
Well, that's true. We could always have the Pontiac Solstice back, remember?
I mean, it's a travesty that we don't still have the Pontiac Solstice, if you ask me.
That was my favorite pace car. That was like rear-wheel drive, 20 million horsepower. It was so good. I don't even know why they don't have it anymore.
Well, pace cars aside, this pace car is about to move aside, and we're going to go green.
Green flag back at Homestead. It looks like Dalton Millam will take the lead. However, Jimmy Mullis got a very good restart. I don't know how long he's going to have the lead here. Mullis seems to be best on the long runs, but he even has a short run car. He has got that thing dialed in so well. I really don't know if anyone's going to be able to contest with him here in about 5 laps.
Well, Daniel Wilborn's trying to, putting up a fight for that second position on the inside, trying to get it while the tires are fresh and while the getting's good, but not able to do it, and now having to gather everything back up underneath them to keep Jacob Hall in the number 6 behind him and hold on to that 3rd spot. Hall looking to the inside, going to turn 1.
Now it's basically just a time game for Mullis to get back to the lead as Jacob Hall does look to the inside at the 11. Almost made contact off turn 2. It looks like Hall got a little loose down the back straightaway. That's going to allow Daniel Wilborn to possibly clear him. No, before turn 3, Wilborn stays on the high side. Michael Gonzalez maintains his 5th position after all the restarts, and he's hanging on.
Now, Jacob Hall wants to make this pass as quick as he can because as the laps tick off, making a pass on the bottom only going to get more and more tough. And you see there, Daniel Wilborn able to clear him coming off turn 4, hold on to that 3rd spot, and the caution is out quickly.
Another caution on the speedway. They are starting to add a quick Guy Sela into the wall. A little bit of damage in turn 1. We're going to look back. We have a multi-car wreck. We're going to take a look at what happened here down the front straightaway. The 26 bounced off the wall. The 22 is now out of the race. been involved in the last 2 cautions. That 22 hard lick. He is done for the day, folks. We're going to take another look back at his onboard. This is a very hard lick. This is very reminiscent to other accidents we've seen in NASCAR head on into the wall.
I mean, I don't know how much more room you want me to give.
Wow, terrible crash right there. That 22 is destroyed.
And he is hot, saying that he was not given enough room to navigate there, or he was giving plenty of room for others to navigate, and he feels like he got used up.
Yeah, and I'd say he did get used up because he just got flat out dumped right there. Now, they've only been green about 3 laps. 2 tires or 4 tires. I think you're the leader. You still take 4 tires. Maybe if you're in the back, you want to get some track position, take 2, and hope for a caution in 12 laps.
Well, it's hard to say because that last stint, we went quite a while, and there was a bit of mixed results for the folks that took 2 tires. The teammates that shook out in the lead, Dalton Millam and Daniel Wilborn, their 2 tires held on strong. They entered the pits 1-2, just like they came back out after the restart. Meanwhile, for Blake Reynolds and others that took 2 tires, not so much. They fell off a cliff. So it's hard to say what is going to be the winning strategy on this run. It's going to more so depend on each individual setup, I believe. We'll see what folks opt to do.
That is very true. Down here on pit lane, you can see, actually we're overhead on the racetrack right now. You can see the whole track, and you can see how dark the rubber is in these corners. These guys, I bet you this track was pretty bleak looking when they came here, but the corners are all black, almost all the way up to the wall, all the way around the racetrack. So I think as we saw that come in, Blake Reynolds' car is really starting to drop off now. Even in that last run on the short restart, didn't quite have the car, and it looks like we have the leader once again. Jimmy Mullis has taken the lead here at Homestead.
Oh, I think that's going to shake back out. He had the better run, but that first pit stall for Dalton Millam got him to the pit outline just ahead of Mullis, so he is going to hold on to the lead here, but it was a very close battle off of the pit lane.
Yep, and here they go again. You know, folks, this has been an interesting race, just kind of seeing how some of these cars have come and go. Obviously, we still know who kind of more dominant ones are. We have Dalton Millam, Jimmy Mullis, Jacob Hall, and then Millam's teammate there. I'm having a brain fart on his name, but
Daniel Wilborn.
Daniel Wilborn has been very competitive. So you're that top 3. Any one of those guys can win. I think Devin Hall, if given the right chance, can get up there and get the victory. He's been fast. Blake Reynolds, if he gets back up there, might have a chance, but I don't know if the track's changed too much for his car or what, but hasn't been doing him a whole lot of favors recently.
Well, and something to note there, he was 10th after the last round of pit stops, and in that short run that we had, wasn't able to make up a lot of ground. Now, he had to restart on the outside, so that may have hurt him, but he now shakes out in 11th. So right now, a net loss in positions for the one. Doesn't look like he's able to march up through the field as steadily as Jimmy Mullis was able to, but we'll see if things change if we get a little bit of a longer run here.
Yep, and really we need to see 10 laps into this race to see how these guys are going to shake things out. Has the track changed a whole lot since the last run? Have these guys changed their setups at all? I'd imagine if you're Blake Reynolds, you're taking out a little bit of right rear tire pressure, or actually going to add a little bit of tire pressure overall to keep some of the wear and heat down, and probably take a little bit of spring purge offset, or put a little bit of spring purge offset back into the car to try and tighten it up, because that thing was so beyond loose. There was no drive in that race car. The fact that he held on to it was a miracle.
Yeah, there was every corner he was getting loose, and we watched him go down the back straightaway, tank slapping all the way from turn 2 to turn 3, and somehow was able to keep that car gathered up underneath him as he slid through turns 3 and 4. A yeoman's job keeping the car straight, but he lost a lot of time doing it, and so far we haven't been able to see him regain any of that. We'll see if that changes here.
Yeah, and here's his other problem. His I rating is so high in this race compared to a lot of these guys even being top split. Let me just take a quick look here at Blake Reynolds. His I rating is 76.85. A couple of the guys he's run around is under 5,000. So if he does not get a good finish, that could really hurt his high rating as well, which is not something he wants to do.
And if he loses I rating, I mean, he's pretty much going to have no choice but to sell off all his assets and go live in seclusion.
Pretty much. He might have to move out to like the friggin' ocean on a little raft and just pray for the best. Pace car's in. Jeff Bodine pulls off. Dalton Millam takes the green flag first, and his teammate has a very good restart rate behind him. But Jimmy Mullis is coming back on the high side. He's going to try and hold off his teammate of Daniel Wilborn. Mullis gets a powerful move, overdrives it just a little bit. Now Wilborn comes down the inside, clears them. Teammates 1-2.
That's something he wasn't able to do on that last restart. Take advantage of that low line, getting up to speed. This time, able to do it. Puts himself back in the second position. Bumps Jimmy Mullis back to third. And now Mullis getting a little bit of a challenge for that third position from Jacob Hall.
Now, I bet from the looks of it, the teammates were managed to communicate a little bit better on this restart and have a bit of a cleaner restart and go together. I know when I'm working with my teammates, you all try to go at the same time and get as far as possible.
Here's a run from the 6 of Jacob Hall, looking to the inside of Jimmy Mullis. Mullis having a fight here for that third spot.
He's having a fight a little bit, but I think they're starting to fan out just a little bit. Get a couple car links, and now Mullis looks like he's going to be thundering on the back door of Daniel Wilborn. I know that's not something that he's wanted, but he's about to get it here as we come down the front straightaway into turn 1 at about 195 miles an hour. Mullis closing that gap rapidly.
Yes, narrow gaps between most of the front runners so far, but no side-by-side action. The first side-by-side battle you find is at the tail end of the top 10. It's a battle for 10th between the 30 of Aaron Waddle and the 14 of Zachary Latimer. Latimer looks to be taking that position off of turn 4, leaving Waddle to try to fend off a challenge from Joshua Campbell in the 7 and the 20 of Sean Butler.
Sean Butler to the inside of the 7. The 7 gave a huge shot to the 30 on the front straightaway, almost sent him around. That would have been a big pile up on the front straightaway. Looks like the front 3 have fanned out just a little bit. Mullis might be saving his tires. The 6 of Jacob Hall, you know, if it has a good car. Devin Hall has a good car. All these guys in the top 5 can easily win this race if things go their way. And Michael Gonzalez, remember how he was in the top 5? He must have gotten himself a penalty. He is back at the 23rd position.
Oh, it's going to be very tough for him to work his way back up through the field, especially with the gaggle of cars that we have in the middle of the pack here. From about that 12th place battle on back, it's just a hornet's nest right now.
It really is. It looks like Sean Butler has a little bit of damage to the inside of his race car. Not sure exactly what happened there, but I'm sure that's not helping him any. But really, this middle of the pack, as you were saying, is all over the place. And these cars are very different than one another in a sense, but at the same time, these guys all seem to be running very close on speed compared to what the leaders have been able to do.
Well, and something that's interesting, Joshua Campbell there in that number 7 holding the 11th spot. He and Sean Butler traded that spot a couple of times. Now he's able to walk away from Butler a little bit, and Alex Scribner in that 15 trying to take that 12th spot away. As he does that, Dustin Johnson tries to take the 13th spot away from him. It's a very interesting balance at this point in the race, trying to attack in front of you but also defend out the back. And in the middle of the pack here, there's a lot of that going on because they're on top of each other.
You really are. Zach Hudson down to the inside of that number 28 of Justin Weaver. Weaver comes back down, gets the run on the high side, go down to turn 3. That M&M's machine has been kind of strong. I don't know how strong it is overall. If he gets in the top 10, gets some cleaner air. But when you're running back here in this pack, you're already running 2 to 3 tenths slower every lap just because of traffic alone. So if you're stuck back here in the gaggle, you are just getting worse and worse every lap and losing time.
And the more that you try to make a pass, the more that you sort of dig the hole for yourself as far as the tire situation goes.
Whoa, we
got
straight
a car
away.
Way out of shape.
I did not catch what
Adam
number that
Cobbett
was.
goes around the number 27.
Caution's out. The caution is out. The 27 gets loose. Wow.
He looped it and was able to keep going, but not before bringing out the caution once again on lap 134.
We're going to go into slow-mo as we come off as we come off turn 2. Looks like he's just going to get loose. We're going on board. Yep, that car just snapped around on him. No time to really save it, and there he goes. No damage obtained, but I'm sure that's not exactly what he wanted. The only advantage is he was only running about 21st at the time, so it's not like he's losing 20 spots. He should be able to get back up there in no time if he has the car. Just has to get some fresh tires on that thing.
Yeah, he started to lose it off at turn 2, was heading down to the inside, tried to get it back under control. The thing was still spinning out on him, and so he did the next best thing to getting it under control, whipped it away from the wall and looped it in a way that he was able to avoid getting hit by anybody else and also avoid contact with the wall, avoid any damage out of that incident, and keep going.
Now at this
Live
point,
to fight another lap.
Now at this point, it's basically 4 tires no matter what you do. You've been out there long enough. You need to get 4 tires, and if you take 2, you're already done on the restart.
We'll have to watch this battle off of pit road. It's been close the last 2 times down here.
Oops. You know what I was saying about 2 tires?
Somebody decided to roll the dice.
They
Dalton Williamson.
They missed their pit stall. They did not make a pit stop, it says.
Well, they decided to roll on through instead of roll the dice.
Yep.
So we expect they'll come back down pit lane. Dalton Millam able to win the race off pit road. Jacob Hall leaps up a couple of spots up to 2nd. 3rd is Daniel Wilborn, and 4th is Jimmy Mullis.
Mullis has a terrible stop at 15.4. One of the slowest times in all the top 10 besides Daniel Wilborn at a 15.5, who also lost 3 spots on that pit stop. Ouch. Sorry, 2 pit stops because Dalton's pitting.
But the big winner there, Jacob Hall, able to leap up a couple of spots with his pit stop. Now he's going to start alongside the leader, Dalton Millam, on the front row for this restart. Although, that's a bit of a mixed bag because Daniel Wilborn in that 11, as we mentioned, they're teammates, he and the leader, Dalton Millam. They'll be communicating with each other, and Wilborn's going to have a very good shot to take 2nd away on this restart just based off of the launch.
Yeah, Mullis stuck up on the high side once again. That's not really where you want to be, even at Homestead Miami Speedway, which is more multi-groove than most tracks on this sim. That can be a killer going off to turn 1.
As the run progresses, fighting off a challenge from the inside in the middle or high lane, not a bad place to be. But on that initial start, especially getting up to speed, fighting off a challenge from the bottom gets to be very difficult.
That it does, and it's not a challenge that you want to have to face every single lap because you're going to keep on going further and further back. Like if you get a restart, and let's say you lose 2 spots on the restart, then boom, you're back up on the high side again, so then you lose another 2 spots.
We documented the first 2 rows. In the 3rd row is going to be Todd Hendrick in the 19. We haven't talked a lot about him today, but he's going to line up 5th. And in 6th is going to be Blake Reynolds trying to rebound a little bit from that bad run.
And speaking of Todd Hendrick there, he started in the 26th spot, so he's finally moved his way up through the field just a little bit to try and say hello to these leaders finally.
We'll see if he has anything more to show these folks. As he restarts in the top 5, he'll be able to demonstrate a little bit of what he has, show off a little bit of strength if he has it, as we transition into the second half of this race.
We do. So far, we've had 6 cautions for 22 laps and 136 laps, so that's not too bad. Only 4 lead changes still, so I know lead changes usually aren't big at Homestead, but normally you do manage to have a few more than that. But that's also part of this open setup style racing. When someone gets way ahead, there's a good chance that they're going to stay out there depending on what kind of setup they have and just how the runs fall.
Well, it's been interesting because there have been narrow gaps, really, between several vehicles up in the top of the field, but passing has been a little bit rare in the top 5 once things get sorted out. It'll be interesting to see if that changes when we get closer to the end of this race, and having 3rd versus 4th or 2nd versus 3rd and so on ends up being more critical if the intensity will ramp up and we'll see some more passing.
I'm interested to see if Jacob Hall can stick on this restart because those 2 teammates, like I said, they just communicated with each other. Green flag is back out. Wilborn and Millam pull away from the field with absolutely 0 issue going into turn 1. 3 wide back.
Well, Jacob Hall is going to be able to slot in 3rd here, but he really didn't do himself any favors as far as putting up a fight for 2nd goes. He was pretty much a full row behind the leader when the leader decided we're going to get back going here. So Not a very strong fight for second, but he slots in third there. We'll see what he can do.
Butler's been lucky with these cautions. He's finally moved himself up to the 12th spot. Jimmy Mullis rides in 4th right now. Jacob Hall still in 3rd. Daniel Wilborn 2nd. Dalton Millam back in 1st place. Blake Reynolds has finally found his way back into the top 5, but will he be able to do anything with it? I'd imagine that he's done a few changes so far.
Ooh, he's loose off of turn 2, though. I don't know if that's overdriving or if that car is still a little bit evil. We'll have to keep an eye on that number 1 now as he tries to fend off a challenge from Devin Hall, who slips up a little bit in the center of the corner.
Loose. He's real loose coming off turn 4. You can see that back end wobbling back and forth as they come to the start-finish line. I don't think he's going to be able to hold on too much longer. Jimmy Mullis dive bombs it heading into turn 1. Gets by Jacob Hall, who got stuck up to the high side, almost bounced off the wall, and now he's charging for 2nd.
Meanwhile, up front, the 4 of Dalton Millam able to enjoy a little bit of a larger gap than we've seen most of the afternoon for the lead. And that's a whopping half of a second back to his teammate Daniel Wilborn, who has his hands full with Jimmy Mullis as they battle for the 2nd position heading to 1.
Yeah, I was going to say don't speak too soon because you know who's right behind him, and that's Jimmy Mullis putting the pressure on him. And I think if Mullis can get by, you're going to have a green flag path to lead. Mullis getting very close to that back bumper down the straightaway, looking to the inside into turn 3. Is he going to go? No, he doesn't. Did you notice another thing? Mullis has changed his line. He was running at the bottom of the racetrack. Now he's moved it up a lane.
Well, and that's something I was going to say. We noted how well he was able to work the bottom as he was working his way through the field, making passes between 20th and 10th. Now he's working his way to the inside, but not hooking right down to that white line, running about a lane up, trying to get a little bit more of that banking in the center of the corner, having to rely on that as he tries to make these passes on tougher cars. Side by side, down into turn 3 for that 2nd position with Daniel Wilborn.
Yes, and Mullis is really trying his best to clear him as they come off turn 4. Will Wilborn get the run? And you know Wilborn's doing everything he can, because if Mullis gets by, then that only hurts his teammate as well. So he's probably trying to wear Mullis out as much as he can. Side by side, Blake Reynolds down into the 4th place now, getting by Jacob Hall. Jacob Hall falling back.
Wilborn really charged into turn 1, trying to keep alongside Jimmy Mullis. That hurt his exit of the corner. Mullis able to clear him, get to 2nd, and now he sets his sight on Dalton Millam, who's Wilborn's teammate. That being said, that battle bought a few more tenths of a second for Dalton Millam. We'll see if he can hang on to it here.
Yep, the charge is here. Who's going to get it? Jimmy Mullis continues to close that gap a little bit, I think. Actually, no, he's off by half a tenth. But now that he doesn't have anybody to race, I think all bets are off, and he's coming.
And somebody else who's coming is Blake Reynolds. As you mentioned, he moved himself up into the 4th spot with a pass of Jacob Hall. Now he's setting his sights on Daniel Wilborn, who's really trying to hang on as these strong cars work their way back to the front.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if Reynolds can hold on. We haven't really seen a long enough run yet to see how well those changes have affected his car. We did notice that he got loose once, and he just got loose again in the middle of turn 1 and 2 right there. He is way too loose of a race car, I think, right now. He does need to get that tightened up a little bit more before the end of this race.
But at the moment, not as evil as it was in those initial laps off the restart. A lot more stable off the corner. We'll see if that remains the case as he pushes harder, trying to take away that 3rd position.
All right, let me just change the context here a little bit. The number 7 down to the inside, Josh Butler, they were just 4 wide coming off turn 4, that gaggle of cars was. So they still haven't stopped racing in the middle of the field. This is where you're getting some of your best racing, 3 wide off turn 2.
Yeah, Sean Butler hanging tough on that outside. He's going to hold on to 12th. Now Joshua Campbell, who is challenging him, trying to hold on to his position. 13th, he's going to have to surrender to the 33 of Jacob Fisher as they work their way through turns 3 and 4.
Yeah, a lot of great racing here in the middle of the pack, and I know those of you are probably looking for us to keep up on that lead pack, but you know what? They have about a half a second gap between each of the cars right now. This is where the racing's at. You see that number 10. That number 10 of Hudson has been down that inside the whole race, trying to make it work, trying to get by cars. He was originally running back there in 22nd, or so, and so he's finally moved his way up to the 14th spot, doing much better than what he was earlier.
And once again, a battle between Jacob Fisher and Sean Butler. Fisher able to slide his way through 3 and 4, work his way up the track in front of Butler, but Butler working his way back with a crossover to the inside, heading to 1.
I'm going to tell you, if we had a dime for every time these two traded spots tonight, we'd be millionaires by now. Here he goes again. Butler back around Fisher. Nope. Gets a little bit tight off turn 2, and Fisher's going to finally solidify that position for maybe a lap this time.
That 12th firmly in the hands of Fisher for now. Sean Butler having to try to fend off a challenge from Zach Hudson, working the bottom in that 10 car, but not so fast. Butler coming back on the outside, hanging tough for now as they head down towards turn 1. This is the battle for 13th.
You know, I did mention that Butler has a little bit of damage, so I'm thinking that's probably affecting him a little bit more in the long run. Probably not just toe out just a little bit, so cause an extra tire wear that he didn't need, because he seems to be fast for 5 or 6 laps, and then he's fading. So the more cautions he has, the better off he is.
Joshua Campbell now hoping to take advantage of any ailments that are hurting Sean Butler's campaign this afternoon. He's working to the inside, looking for the 14th position as they come down the front straightaway. That's the 7 of Campbell working the inside of the 20, heading to turn 1.
Right on Sean Butler's car, it says put it out. I'm sure he's screaming that right now to get 4 tires again, maybe get more of that damage fixed. Here comes now the 29. He's going to be trying to get himself into the mixes 2x2. Car on the wall behind him. It looks like the number 15 bounces out the wall, keeps on going. This is crazy up here.
Meanwhile, things have gotten a little bit spicy in the top 5. Blake Reynolds has leapfrogged his way up to 3rd, bumped Daniel Wilborn back to 4th, and into a battle for that position with Jacob Hall, who works his way to the inside in 1 and 2.
Yeah, so Jacob Hall, he's gone forward, he's gone backwards, and now he's trying to come forward again. Daniel Wilborn falling back a little bit. The 2nd through 4th place is kind of on top of each other compared to what they have been. And I also wanted to mention Jimmy Mullis has shaved off 2 more tenths for that lead. But Blake Reynolds is coming quick.
Yep, Blake Reynolds, you said his car is still a little bit too loose. That may be working in his favor at this stage in the run. Perhaps the handling now working its way to his favor, because he is all over Jimmy Mullis, who rides in 2nd, and both of them are closing the gap to the leader, Dalton Millam.
Yep, they are closing the gap, and fairly quickly. Mullis has that down to a 6.66 gap there, so he's getting cursed, and he's trying to send him in.
Yeah, as he works his way closer to the leader, he also looks out the rearview mirror, sees a mirror full of the number 1 of Blake Reynolds, who's right up on the rear deck lid of that number 2.
Yeah.
These two are coming with a head of steam and also battling amongst themselves.
Yeah, if I had to put my bets on anybody winning this race, it's going to be anyone inside that top 3. They have been fairly equal most of the night, with the exception of Blake Reynolds, who fell back for a little while to lose race car, but he may have gotten it fixed or has changed his driving style, as now you see him driving right down to the bottom of the racetrack, so it can't be too bad anymore if he can hang on.
Yep, as we noted, have to think that there have been a number of adjustments made to that number 1 right now, working in his favor as he takes a look to the inside of Jimmy Mullis, trying to take that 2nd spot away. He wants to be the one to lead the charge towards the leader, Dalton Millam. Not going to be able to do it this time, though.
Nope, but all this battling has allowed Dalton Millam to pull away another 1/10 of a second, so Dalton Millam's loving this side-by-side battling, because it's slowing both of them down, not allowing them to use the real estate that they would like to use like they normally would on a good lap, as Millam continues to widen that gap little by little.
The battle picking up once again for the 2nd position. Blake Reynolds trying to edge up enough that he can clear Jimmy Mullis. Not going to be able to do it this time off of turn 2, and we see a little bit of it right there at the cost of it. He gets a little bit loose as they battle. That's just going to eat up the tires.
Yep, Reynolds all over his back bumper. Now you see Mullis trying to run the inside, which Reynolds just ran the lap before, trying to take that lane away. Does so successfully. Mullis actually clears the car length and a half gap. A little bit of smoke on the racetrack. Not sure where that's coming from. And they've closed that gap down now to a half a second, actually. And Mullis is back in his fast lane, it looks like. And Reynolds is going to be doing his best trying to get by. And we might have a 3-car battle for the lead here in a couple laps.
Well, it's very interesting, because these two are really going after each other. Mullis taking away Reynolds lane. Now Reynolds trying to use the high lane like Mullis was before, trying to find a way around, and in Mullis' case, trying to find a way to hold on, as they both still slowly but surely close the gap to the number 4 of Dalton Millam.
Yeah, now Daniel Wilborn's trying to get back by Hall and vice versa all over again. These guys are on top of each other. Mullis, he's just doing his best. Reynolds gets to run in turn 3. And then Mullis seems to be better in 1 and 2. So they are just trading off every single lap. But they aren't falling off as much as I thought they would be every lap running side by side. So I wonder if this is just kind of their natural lane that they're running in right now.
Well, Blake Reynolds and Jimmy Mullis once again side by side going off into turn 1. Reynolds really sends it into turn 1 and 2
clear.
And works
No,
his
he's
way
not.
to the top of the track. Not able to get up in front of Mullis quite enough, though, to complete that pass. Mullis surging back to the second position with a big run off the top. Reynolds went all out there going into the corner, trying to get clear of Mullis and get that position secured, get himself into the top lane. Just wasn't quite able to do it.
Now Reynolds with a huge run as they're going to be going off to turn number 1. Looks like he lost a little bit of it when he got a little loose off turn 4. Going to dive bomb it again. Now they have it down. These guys, all 3 are right on top of each other almost. That leader's gap has shrunk, and look who's starting to get loose every corner. Blake Reynolds. Could this be his final nail in the coffin here as they go through the corners?
Well, we'll see. He's got a challenge from Jimmy Mullis off to the inside. He should get a run off of turn 4 here and likely be able to clear him and set his sights on the 4. But as you noted, he burned off the right rear tire just a little bit, making that pass happen. It'll be interesting to see if there's enough left to A, get to the 4, but then more importantly, B, complete a pass for the lead. We'll see.
Okay, all 3 of these guys are running very similar lap times, with the exception of Reynolds and Mullis, being a little bit faster. So Mullis and Millam get side by side and take each other's lanes away. You're going to see Mullis close up,
Ooh,
and then
loose for Blake Reynolds.
It's going to be starting to go downhill for him. I think we've seen this happen before in the long runs. His car seems to be not so great the first 5 laps, then it comes in for 10 or 12 laps, and then it goes away again. I think he's going to go back down that going away phase. But even as we said that, he closed the gap down to 0.2 or a quarter of a second on the leader, so he's still coming. So I wonder if that leader's trying to save, knowing he's going to have the battle.
Well, and that's the thing. We'll see here if Blake learned the lesson from that last long run that we had.
Caution! We have a caution.
And we will not see because the caution's out.
Big crash, turn 3, 4 cars, no front ends, big trouble. The number 7, Josh Campbell, who was doing all right, looks like his day is done. We're going to see what happens here. Man, they're all back. Well, it's hard to tell what happened coming down the back straightaway. All right, the 33 bounced off the wall.
In the 33, he bounces off the wall.
Gets into the 7.
And leaves the 7 with nowhere to go.
I knew you guys were all driving over your head.
Wow.
And the 7, as he was just trying to get back going, came down and clipped the car that was just trying to squeak by. Didn't catch who it was. Going to look at it again here. It's the 21 of Robert Torgerson, and then it was on from there.
That was the big one, folks, here at Homestead Miami Speedway. Back in about the 12th position at the time, and that collected a lot of drivers. The 21 slants it back into the racetrack. Wow, that 7 head on into the wall. That looks like a 5, 6 cars involved in that accident. That's the big one. That's about as big as you're going to get here, unless if it's a restart wreck. Yeah, that just ended a lot of guys' days on them.
Well, and that was a very odd incident from the beginning. Just a car getting out of control, hitting the wall, and then they just stacked up and stacked up and stacked up, and finally a car gets clipped and turned in front of a couple others, and it ends with quite a few cars with a lot of damage.
Jason Killer up front, or sorry, Jason Miller up front with no front end, so he's going to be pitting this time. So he's up front now, no front end. He's got to come down and probably end his career. Mike Knight looks like he tried staying out to get a lap. Joe Krebs, same thing. Joe Krebs actually finds his way back onto the lead lap. Dalton Millam going to have the lead. Blake Reynolds second. Jimmy Mullis third. Jacob Hall fourth. And Devin Hall in 5th place is going to round out your top 5 when we go back racing.
A big loser on that round of pit stops appears to be Daniel Wilborn. He was 4th coming in, I believe, and he's going to sort out here in about the 6th position, it looks like. So he gets kicked back a couple of spots. That's not going to help out his effort here this afternoon.
Ouch, that's all I got to say about that one. 2 laps to racing here back at Homestead. We do not promise you that we're going to bring you the whole races. We probably, I imagine Tyler and I are starting to get a little tired here. Probably going to bed here shortly. But
I think Brennan's more tired than I am
because he was my time.
Because he was born in 1895, so...
I am actually 100 and how many ever years old that is. 100. Wow. I'm done.
We've well established tonight that Brennan can't manage to count, which is understandable considering that he is 113 years old. 123 years old, excuse me.
Thank you, mister. You know, I'm going to ask you this. Does Blake Reynolds capture the lead? I'm going to go with a yes for now.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see because, as you noted, the first few laps on a restart, that car can be a little bit squirrely. I think the 4 is a little bit more stable than he is, and the 4 is going to have the advantage of being able to take off like a rocket on the inside on this restart. It may be Jimmy Mullis who's in a better position to try to mount a challenge than Blake Reynolds by the time they come off of turn 2.
That is true. 1 lap to green this time by. They get the heads up. Dalton Millam going to lead, and Blake Reynolds looking for that lead once again. I'm not sure if Reynolds has actually led any laps today. Has he? Are you able to check on that? It is. It's going to be interesting to see how he does here.
Control of it. No, just keep your foot wide open in the gas, and try to get control of it and run over everybody. That's how you do it. And then you run their race.
As you said, 1 lap until we go back green. Really more so like half a lap as they work their way down the back straightaway. We'll sort out the top 10 for you here really quick. It's Dalton Millam with the lead, Blake Reynolds second, Jimmy Mullis third, Jacob Hall fourth, Devin Hall in fifth, Daniel Wilborn sixth. It's going to be Michael Gonzalez lining up 7th for the restart. 8th will be Dustin Johnson. 9th is going to be Austin Edstrom, and 10th should be Todd Hendrick.
Yep, getting ready to go green. Jeff Bodine in that pace car once again, getting ready. He's got those lights off. Pace car get more miles packed onto it. There's a lot of cold starts for that pace car. I'm sure that engine's coming down to the end of its legs. Base car's in. Dalton Millam and Blake Reynolds will lead the field down. Green flag back in the air. Looks like Millam gets a decent run, but Blake Reynolds actually gets a great restart and hangs right with them going into turn 1.
Yeah, the best restart possibly that we've seen from the outside, but a bobble in the middle of 1 and 2 allows Mullis to make a challenge.
I was going to say, look who's side by side again. Do they stay like this? Is Mullis going to be great on the short run, or is Blake Reynolds going to be able to outdo him finally? Nope, Blake Reynolds cuts him off. I think Mullis actually let him in a little bit there because he knew going side by side would slow them both down. Because in my mind, if I'm Jimmy Mullis, I want Blake Reynolds to get to the lead. I want them both to use up their tires, and then when they've used up their tires, I want to get by them.
Well,
we
don't have to worry about that.
Yellow flag again. Wow. What? The 21 is around on the front straightaway.
He was just involved in that last caution, and it looks like he goes around all by himself here as you load up the replay.
Yeah, we're going to see here coming off turn 4. The back end starts to slide. There he goes. Doesn't actually scrape the wall, just comes around and sits there. And, yep, that's not going to help his race any. And you can see a lot of cars are out of this race. We had 27 cars left on track, 35 started. That big one took out a lot of drivers. Now, we have only had a 2-lap run. Are 4 tires still the right move?
I would have to think not. With how well the folks up front are running, especially compared to the rest of the pack their times, they can afford to either take 2 tires or maybe even stay out, depending on how this all shakes out. If you're in the middle of the pack, maybe you take 2 tires also, trying to leapfrog yourself a little bit more for position, or go ahead and take 4 tires and see if that could be the difference between you and a few of the guys around you. But with only a lap, 2 laps really at full speed, it's hard to imagine that there won't be any 2-tire stops here, if not people staying out.
Yeah, and this has been a fun race, guys. Like I said, I know we won't be able to bring you the whole thing, but we're glad to be able to bring you what we've been able to. Tyler and I will be looking to try and broadcast a couple of WINSTEL Cup Series races, hopefully this season. We're definitely going to be doing Montreal for you.
Primarily the ones that we know we would suck in if we were doing it ourselves.
Thank you. So we know that we're not going to be a championship contention for WINSTEL Cup, so we do hope to bring you a couple broadcasts of WINSTEL Cup Series this season, just to spice things up a little bit. And this is also a lot of fun doing this. So like I said, I know we won't make it to the end tonight. Probably going to only go another 10 minutes or so, but thank you guys for tuning in. I hope the broadcast quality looks good. Let me know in the comments. And yeah, this has just been fun tonight.
Yes, obviously this is something that's new to us, so if there's something that you're seeing or hearing that either we could be doing more of or less of, or something that we can inject into this to make it a little bit better, either from the commentary side of things or from what's being shown to you with the overlay here, let us know and we can try to make this a little bit better. Obviously this is somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but if we can make it a little bit of a better experience, any feedback's appreciated.
That it is, and like I said, because we won't be broadcasting the whole WINSTEL Cup season, obviously, because we still want to race in it just as much as we do broadcast. But we will, hopefully in the future, be doing a little bit more of these. Maybe we're probably going to have to go half driver, half broadcaster. We'll see, but we do want to give you some WINSTEL Cup action, because the COT cars, and Tyler, you can probably test this, with good fixed setups, drive absolutely amazing on the racetrack. It's great racing.
Oh yes, they're vehicles that have a lot of power still left in them, and unless you just completely screw up making the setup, which doesn't happen at WINSTEL very often, if at all, you are going to have to master throttle control to be able to make time. The setups aren't out of control. You can get around the track and maintain your pace, but if you want to go fast, you're going to have to work the throttle pedal well to do it, and that's making it a lot of fun so far. So we had a great night of racing at Michigan on Sunday, and based on the test races that we had for Las Vegas, which is the next one on the docket for 2 nights from now on Sunday night, that one will probably be a lot of fun too.
Yeah, so watch for the WINSTEL Vision. We'll probably be broadcasting a little bit more than WINSTEL. We'll try and pick up a couple of fixed races here and there, maybe an NIS fixed race, which would obviously have to wait until next year at this point, because, well, this is the last NIS Open race this year, and NIS fixed, to my knowledge, ends tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and that'll be the final race for that.
I believe you got a Sunday. I believe you got a Sunday night,
which we will not be around for, because we have WINSTEL.
Doing our own thing.
Which ends before NIS fix, but I'll be going to bed by the time that race starts.
Because, as we mentioned, 1895.
Yes, 1895.
Speaking of 1895, that would not be a high enough iRating to get into this race.
No, that would probably
segues.
put your bottom split. Alright guys, about to go green. This will probably be the last restart that we cover for tonight, unfortunately. Like I said, I would love to bring you the whole thing, but that's just not going to be possible tonight, because we'll still be sitting here another hour, and I don't think either of us have the time to do that right now, because honestly this is for broadcasts. This broadcast is just for a test, for a little bit of fun as well, just to see how things are going to work, and I think so far they turned out pretty good. About to go back green flag racing here with Dalton Millam leading Blake Reynolds once again, and Jimmy Mullis in that third spot. Jimmy Mullis back in the preferred groove on the bottom.
Back to it here, and a much better start for the number 4 of Dalton Millam, able to get a better jump on Blake Reynolds, but Reynolds not a bad jump himself over Jimmy Mullis to try to hold on to that second spot. They're side by side going through 1 and 2, but we'll see if Mullis can clear him and get that second position before they get to turn 3.
Mullis to the inside, going to turn 3. Mullis doing his best to get by Blake Reynolds. Still no luck. Someone down the apron of the racetrack at the back. He saves it. It looks like that's Daniel Wilborn. His race is going downhill quick, as he's already still batting that 6th spot and might lose more here in the front straightaway.
Meanwhile, the battle for second has been wrapped up by Jimmy Mullis. He takes that spot away from Blake Reynolds, sets his sights on the 4 of Millam and the lead, someplace that he hasn't been able to quite get to since those issues that he had on a pit stop about 100 laps ago. He's now within just a few tenths of returning to the lead.
We do have reports that he was getting a suit change after a bloated diarrhea, so I can understand that one. To fight your way back up to second place after all, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, that sort of situation, I mean, it just stinks, and you never want to have that happen to you, but he's been able to clean up pretty well and clean up on the racetrack, too. Back to second.
Oh, we got a crash.
Big time loose by
no,
the
he
6
saved
of Jacob Hall. He's still
Holy
saving it, still
shit.
saving it, still saving it, and he's able to gather it up, and really a lot of heads-up driving around him, too, to avoid contact.
We're running back to that instant replay here as we come off turn 2. You can see Jacob Hall coming off turn 2, high speeds, gets loose, almost whips the car around, almost into the 9, who has finally worked his way back to the top 10. I don't even know how everybody avoided him. Josh Butler goes into the grass to avoid him. That was close. Speaking of the 9, not only is he in the top 10, he's back up into the top 5.
Well, just to finish off the documentation on what just happened there with the 6 of Jacob Hall, here's the good news. You got way loose and you almost lost the car, but you didn't, and you didn't get any damage. Here's the bad news. You were 4th, now you're 17th, and you just burned off the right rear.
Yep, well, he's going to have to hope for another caution here sooner rather than later to get fresh tires, because if he has to do a whole run on those tires, well, he's going to be losing seconds, not just a couple tenths here and there. He'll be losing seconds by the end of this run.
Well, speaking of picking up a 10th here and a 10th there, Jimmy Mullis right up to the rear decklet of the number 4 of Dalton Millam. The battle for the lead is starting to intensify as we work lap 177.
And you know Blake Reynolds is sitting back there hoping, just hoping they race each other so hard that they burn the tires off. But I think that these two guys up front, I don't think they're going to do that. You can tell Jimmy Mullis is laying back a little bit. Looks like he's going to try and get another run at this guy, cool off the tires, and go back at him.
But as he does that, Blake Reynolds is not getting him a lot of breathing room. He's working his way right up to the rear bumper of the second-place machine of Mullis. The top 3 are within about half a second of each other.
And we know one thing with Mullis. He enjoys the high horsepower cars. He's raced at WINSTEL before. That was with the car tomorrow, which has 950 horsepower. He can even fly in those puppies, so he likes the higher horsepower cars. Cup cars probably don't have as much horsepower as he'd like anymore. They definitely won't next year, but he's putting on a whale of a show right now.
Well, but at the same time, to his credit, Dalton Millam, whether this is a product of Mullis trying to save his stuff or just Millam picking up the pace a little bit, he's put a little bit of a gap between himself and the number 2, and now the battle is on for second place, not the lead.
Yep, things are still heating up. It has been a blast, and like I said, just been a lot of good racing with these guys, even though they haven't necessarily passed each other a ton, but they've gotten right close to getting to each other. They just haven't been able to do it because they are so even. They really are.
Oh, I think I see some revenge trying to happen in the middle of the pack with the 21 on the 33.
Uh-oh. We're going to have some problems.
He went sailing into the
he
corner.
just hit him in the corner. He just slammed him up the racetrack.
And the 24 of Michael Jeans almost cleaned him out. My goodness.
We have someone almost intent wrecking going on at the back of the pack. He is not happy with that number 33. Right now, number 33 of Jacob Fisher dropping back. They're pissed.
Well, but Jake Fisher now dropping back and the 21 continuing on. It looks like that's sorted itself out. I'd be very surprised if they manage to find their way back to each other in the short term. The battle, the most intense battle, is in the top 3 right now. Jimmy Mullis trying to close the gap back to Dalton Millam. And he's got a whole lot of trouble out from behind him with Blake Reynolds all over him.
Yep. This has been a fun race so far, and honestly, it's been very interesting to watch these guys come and go. But you're down with 100 laps to go at Homestead. Last NIS Open race this season. It's go time.
Yep, 86 laps to go at this point, and we're really moving into the closing stages of this race. If it were to go green, they could probably get to the end with just one more pit stop. So the opportunities to come in and fix the car, to get restarts and get your way up to the front are going to just continue to dwindle. So The mistake that we saw from the 6 of Jacob Hall, really untimely, because the time to recover is getting shorter every lap.
Yeah, if you make a mistake now, lose 15 spots, you need to hope for a caution immediately and get back up there as fast as you can, because you see this top 3, only 1/10, and well, about 1/10.5 separate Mullis and Dalton Millam, and then half a tenth between Mullis and Blake Reynolds, but all 3 gaps are getting smaller and smaller every single lap.
Well, and we'll just talk about the story between these 3. Dalton Millam was able to take the lead with a good pit stop, and has really also made some good adjustments too, because we saw his car had fallen off quite a bit. Now he's got a fierce battle from Jimmy Mullis, but he's been able to hold on to the lead for dozens of laps because he's been running a very good race. Meanwhile, Jimmy Mullis has had to pick his way through the field after his issues on pit road and in his fire suit out the rear end to get his way back to second, and hasn't quite been able to fully recover with the taking of the lead. And Blake Reynolds also had his own issues, a lot of loosey-goosey out the rear end. He's been able to work his way back to third, but not quite up to where he was before. So you can see that getting your way back up to the front takes a lot of the race and takes a lot of race car.
Look at Reynolds all over the back deck lid of Jimmy Mullis. Both have had their faults this race. Both have seen almost the back of the pack. Here they are fighting for the lead, while Dalton Millam has had the complete opposite experience. He saw the lead, and he has completely just held it for the last over 100 laps, and he has not given it up.
And just to put a punctuation mark on what we've been discussing there, we're under the impression that the 2 of Mullis and the 1 of Reynolds at this juncture are better cars than the 4 of Dalton Millam. But Millam's the one with the lead, and he has a lot of control because of that as far as dictating what happens with the rest of this race. And that's a product of him running a solid race all the way up until this point.
Alright, you can see at the back of the pack now, the 27 massive damage, the 17 massive damage. All those guys are just destroyed. Going to go back up front where it's interesting. You have the 4, you have the 2, you have the 1. 3 of the top drivers in this race almost are right here on top of each other. What would you be thinking if you're in second? What's your game plan?
Well, at this point, I want to try to get around Dalton Millam as quick as I can, if I can, because Blake Reynolds is not wasting any time. He's not just waiting around, waiting for things to sort themselves out in front of him. He is charging hard, and he is charging to the outside of
wide
Mullis.
for the lead, boys. Blake Reynolds gets really loose, right rear, scrapes the wall, keeps on trucking, and now both of them have just lost a lot of ground to Dalton Millam, while Mullis almost had the lead off too. He, I think, checked up just a little bit to give Reynolds more space, and here they go backwards.
Yeah, he was looking to the inside of Millam off turn 2, but at the same time, Reynolds was charging up on the outside, and that's exactly what I was saying. Reynolds isn't waiting around. He's been charging his way into each of these corners, trying to get that position, and he has exactly what he wants now. He has the outside, and now he has second place, setting his sights on Dalton Millam for the lead.
Boys, oh boys, that number 1 of Blake Reynolds has already immediately closed that gap as soon as he got by Jimmy Mullis. Now Mullis might as well play the waiting game, wait for them to wear out their tires, because he knows that one of Blake Reynolds gets loose, speaking his toe, he gets loose out the corner. Dalton Millam, on the other hand, has that car pretty planted, just like Jimmy Mullis does.
Wow, and the 21 had spun out on the end of the straightaway.
Wow.
No caution, but a lot of mayhem as these leaders went flying past him. That was almost a big incident.
Wasn't that 21 that tried to intent wreck the 33, and now he almost just took out the whole field in front of the pack?
And he was involved in the most recent 2 cautions, one getting caught up in somebody else's mess and another making his own. So he's having a lot of bad fortune and bad decisions catch up with him right now.
You know, Blake Reynolds keeps getting that car in front of him bigger, and then it gets smaller. Then it gets bigger, then it gets smaller. The 4 throws the block in turn 1 and 2, trying to get the run off the coming down the back straightaway. Reynolds still back up into his back bumper. Mullis dropping back.
Yeah, and that works for now, but you have to wonder how many more times he's going to be able to throw that block and make it work. Blake Reynolds once again diving to the inside of the number 4. Trying to make it work as they head down the front straightaway. Not quite enough steam to make it work, but they're going to head off into 1 and 2 again, and there's another dive from Reynolds.
This is only a matter of time. The 4 using the lane that will save his tires. Reynolds down on the inside, burning them up, trying to get by. Now, if Reynolds gets by, I don't think it's going to be too easy to keep that lead, because then you have Mullis, who is also closing the gap once again. Going to try and make this a 3-car battle. I think he's just holding out so they burn up their tires a little bit, going really fast around these corners.
Yep, I think that's a conscious decision that we're seeing from Mullis right now, and also a very deliberate line being taken by Dalton Millam right now. It's very easy for Blake Reynolds to dive to the inside like we're seeing, but with the line that Dalton Millam's running, it's very hard to have enough of a run to keep that side-by-side battle down the straightaway. So it's a bit of a lost cause at the moment, trying to make that work on the bottom. Although a much better run coming off of turn 4, but by the time they get to turn 1, all that ground is lost. So he's making that fight on the bottom.
There he goes.
He charges. He's going to try to slide
cut him off?
up.
No. But you know,
but he does make the 4 check up a little bit, trying to be safe. So he's got a lot more position now alongside the 4 than he's had in the previous few attempts. Let's see what happens in 3 and 4.
Side by side for the lead through turns 3 and 4. This is only helping the drivers of the number 9 and Michael Gonzalez and Devin Hall, as they are now catching the leaders, almost down within 1 second. We almost got the top 5 within 1 second of each other. These guys have been side by side for the last 5
Another
laps.
slide job attempt from Blake Reynolds. We'll see if Millam can pull off the crossover. He comes to the bottom off of turn 2. It's not going to work, and more importantly, even if he did get alongside,
he got him.
Blake Reynolds did exactly what he wanted to do there. He established himself. If it was going to be side by side, he was going to be the car on the outside. It wasn't going to work for Millam if he came back to the inside anyhow. Reynolds has the lead, but
oh, no.
He's getting loose. I was just about to say, did he burn up the tires doing it?
Well, now you have the top 3 within 0.2 of a second of each other. You have Dalton Millam right behind Blake Reynolds. Then you have Jimmy Mullis with his car hooked up on the inside of the racetrack. He's got to pass 2 cars. So it is not an end game for any of these guys. They're stacked up on top of each other. Then you have Michael Gonzalez back in the 4th place, Devin Hall in 5th, who are just trying to hope that these guys make a few more mistakes and race a little bit harder so they can get up there.
And let's just talk about Gonzalez really quickly here. I mean, we said a few runs ago, oh, this is a car that falls off as the run continues. Well, that's not the case now. He has worked his way up to 4th, and very solidly. He's not very far off of the lead at this point, just 1.2 seconds. If those guys get to mixing it up a little bit more in front of him, he may actually end up being able to close up that gap too.
His lap times are very on par with the leaders. Mullis now down to the inside of the number 4, Dalton Millam, trying to take that 2nd spot. I think Mullis saved his tires a little bit, and but he's still going to get by Millam. You know how hard he's been to get by all night long. It even took Blake Reynolds 7 laps straight going side by side with this guy before he got by him. Mullis now has to wear up his tires to get by the number 4.
And all the while he does that, Blake Reynolds is just setting sail, trying to build as big a gap as he can, and also keep the tires a little bit cooled off here. Take advantage of the fact that you don't have any pressure out the back. Try to get the rubber underneath you just a little bit more, and be prepared for when Mullis does eventually clear that pass, be able to have yourself positioned and set up to hold off a charge.
Well, folks, we are lap 199 of 267 here at the Homestead Miami Speedway. The top 3 have finally settled themselves after about a 30-lap run right there, where they've all been on top of each other. That was exciting. Blake Reynolds now driving away fast, but will his tires hold on?
And more importantly, the 21 that has been having an afternoon, will he work his way back to the 33 and intend to wreck him still?
Oh my God, this guy does not give up. He is he's determined to make sure that 33 ends his race before he does. Well, I think we got a caution coming in about 10 laps here, folks.
We'll see how it pans out.
Well, folks, it's been a fun about 150 laps that we broadcasted for you, but we have to call it quits for the end of the race tonight. We thank you all so much for watching. Tyler, do you have any thoughts here as we close with the broadcast for tonight? Unfortunately, like I said, guys, we are on a bit of a time constraint because I have to get running. We just did this test broadcast for fun, for the quality. I wish we could get you to the end, but we just can't tonight.
I just hope there's an intent wreck.
Me too. Maybe we'll hold off another lap here. Do you think it's worthwhile?
Nah, he's not close enough now. It'll have to happen after you fall asleep.
Alright guys, I'm now going to bed. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a good night, everybody.